In any given year, 1/3 of all murders of women are carried out by husbands or boyfriends. This is according to Martin Waker, a doctor graduated from the University of Louisville School of Medicine, published an article in the National Library of Medicine in January 2022. There has been increasing reports of domestic violence, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. The amount of people who are victims themselves or people who know victims is growing in numbers. Survivors of domestic violence, and specifically intimate partner violence, should have stronger laws and policies to prevent victimization. I will go in depth into domestic violence, specifically focused on intimate partner violence and the effects that result from this. Then I will discuss how victims are being victimized and the laws that have been put in place for survivors' protection. First, let's go over the basic background of domestic violence and intimate partner violence and the effects on victims. Basic information of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. The definitions of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. According to Mariana Mazza, who works in the Department of Neurosciences section of psychiatry in Italy, along with other associates, in a journal from the National Library of Medicine in June 2021. Domestic violence is any abuse in a family or between partners, which abuse can be physical, emotional, sexual, or financial. According to Chevron Holiday, a doctor graduated from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, published in a journal from the National Library of Medicine in 2020. Intimate partner violence is defined as a physical and or sexual violence, stalking, or psychological aggression by a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, or ex. Domestic abuse can be towards children or intimate partners usually living within the same household. Intimate partner violence is typically a male abuser and a female victim, but female abusers and same-sex partner abuse does occur. The psychological and physical effects on victims of abuse. The most common form of intimate partner violence is through emotional abuse. The loop of emotional abuse and gaslighting in these relationships leads to many different mental illnesses. These illnesses can include depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, and suicidal thoughts and tendencies. Along with mental illnesses, victims will abuse drugs or alcohol as a result of emotional abuse. Problems with concentration, difficulties in social, educational, or work settings can arise. Physical violence is also prevalent, and the effects are typically the indicators of IPV. The most common form of physical injuries are contusions, lacerations, and fractures of the head, neck, and face. Physical health problems such as chronic pain, gastrointestinal problems, traumatic brain injury, cardiovascular diseases, and reproductive health issues can develop from abuse. Now that we've gone over the basics and effects of domestic abuse and IPV, I'll go over victimization and the laws and policies already in place. Victimization of survivors and the laws and policies currently in place. Survivors are commonly victimized and usually must fight for credibility after escaping abuse. Of IVP victims, only 44% report any abuse to police departments. In the case of physical assault, Black women are 2 times as likely to call police for help than white women. According to Chevron Holiday, the main act to protect victims in the Violence Against Women's Act passed in the main act to protect victims is the Violence Against Women's Act passed in 1995. According to Britannica Academic, published by Encyclopedia Britannica in January 2012, a group called the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence was formed in 1994 to help support victims. After exploring the laws and policies, let's recap. Survivors of domestic violence, and specifically intimate partner violence, should have stronger laws and policies to prevent victimization. First, I talked about domestic violence, specifically focused on intimate partner violence and the effects that result from this. Then I discussed how victims are being victimized and laws that have been put in place for survivors' protection. Unfortunately, the numbers of domestic abuse and intimate partner violence cases is rising. Knowing information on domestic violence and intimate partner violence and the resources available is useful knowledge everyone should have.